好，多謝大家支持香港亞洲電影節2020嚟到今日嘅放映《風之谷》，一套土耳其嘅電影，亦都係我哋今年新導演獎嘅其中一個競賽嘅電影。今日係啦，我哋好高興就請到呢套電影嘅導演嚟到呢一度。即係唔係嚟呢度啦，即係其實佢就會透過 Zoom 咧同大家有個對談咁樣。Okay, thank you very much for coming to the screening of The Hive at the Hong Kong Asian Film Festival. Tonight we are very happy to have with us virtually the director of this film to share with us her experiences in making the film. So maybe we should welcome the director of the film, Eylem Kaftan. Eylem, are you online now?
Hello, Clarence. Hello, Hong Kong.
Right. Okay. Hello, Eylem. Yes, please. Could you give a round of applause to the director, Eylem Kaftan? Hello, Eylem. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, well, at least virtually this time around. Maybe I'll just kickstart the proceedings by asking the first question. I know that this story on which you based The Hive, it was inspired by something you explored in one of your documentaries. Is it true? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Hello again, Hong Kong audience. I'm so happy to be with you today. Although it's a virtual presence, I still feel your energy, and I'm so enthusiastic to connect with you, and I look forward to your questions. Regarding the Genesis of Hive, I always tell the same story because it's always the same story. It's based on a documentary series I was shooting, directing, and presenting for the public channel about urban farmers. Modern people, urban people, people like us who live in big cities, who go back to nature, hoping to find an utopia in nature, hoping to find peace in nature after being overwhelmed by the city culture. They go back and do farming, they milk cows, they plant trees, and they find a new purpose for themselves. But they still carry this urban city state of mind, and they often fail in nature because nature has her own ways of doing things. And so I was fascinated by this confrontation between these urban people, modern people, and what nature had to offer them and teach them. I had a lot of observations, and one single woman who I met in the eastern Black Sea region, who was a beekeeper, who had to confront a real bear and who had to kill the bear, and then finding out that it was a mother bear was my source of inspiration. So it's based on a true story.
So actually the actor playing the lead character, I say, Maryam Uzali, is interesting because she is actually from overseas. Actually, she is from the big city, actually in Germany. And then in a way, Isis' story resembled her own story, wasn't it? I mean, to go from Germany back to Turkey, rural Turkey, to make this film. So can you tell us a little bit about, well, your work with Meryem?
Meryem is one of the top stars in Turkey. She's quite famous all around the world. She was the lead actress in the Game of Thrones of Turkey, The Magnificent Century. She was acting the official first wife of the Sultan. And since it's my first film, I wasn't expecting somebody as big as her as a name. But when I met her, I was quite fascinated by her positive energy, her enthusiasm, and also the fact that her biggest fear was bees. She's so scared of bees. She's so terrified by them that in Berlin, she changes restaurants. She lives in Germany and she's really shocked by them. And I said, so how are you going to shoot this film? You know, we are going to be on top of the mountain in very difficult conditions, working with real bears and real bees. And she's like, I'm not scared of bears, but I'm scared of bees. But she saw this as a challenge, you know, as a way, is like a gift from nature to confront and face. So she said yes, and then we connected so much. It was only a few months before the shooting of the film. I didn't have in mind somebody coming from Germany, but we changed the character a little bit together. We transformed the character together. She was supposed to be somebody coming from the big city. I made it Germany because there are a lot of, as you know, German people Turkish people who live in Germany. So it fit well. And since I lived in Canada for 10 years, we know this diasporic sense of, you know, being in another country and kind of combining bridging continents. By the way, I just want to introduce you the sister of Ayşe, who is Mine in the film, Burcu Salioğlu, one of our actresses. She's right next to me, and she wants to say hi. Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, she looks different than the film.
Very, very different, I have to say. Yes, but that's a great transformation for the film then. But I think this is quite a new territory for you, isn't it, Eylem? Because you've spent most of your career beforehand making documentaries, and this is your first fictional film. So how did you decide to switch from one genre to another, from reality to fiction?
Clarence,
thank you very much.
I always wanted to make a fiction film, but it looked so difficult to me. I didn't know from where to start, and just by chance, when the earthquake hit Turkey in 1999, my hometown, I said I have to film this, and just by chance I became a documentary filmmaker, and then I kept making several documentaries a year. I was like a documentary machine. I really loved the genre and played with it. And I had a few stories to do fiction, but I didn't have that much courage, you know. And maybe the stories weren't strong enough. But when I met this woman and when I heard about her story, this woman, the beekeeper, and the fact that she killed the bear and she was so guilty about it, I fell in love, and instantly I said, I have to make a movie about this film, this story. Because when you make a film, you have to have a great story to be so passionate to face all the difficulties and challenges. You have to really believe in it. And I really believe in the energy of the story and the message it has about Mother Nature. Did I see a bee in the room?
I think so. Actually, yeah. I wonder whether it paid for its entry here, but maybe he or she wants to see his or her own kind on film. So yes, okay. So maybe I shouldn't really just monopolize the conversation. Maybe I'll just open it up to the audience to see whether we've got any questions for Eylem. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and then our colleague will pass you the microphone. Any questions? Yes, our friend.
Thank you. Hi, Eylem. I really enjoy your film, and I just have a question about the wild beehive that the mother cautioned the daughter at her young age not to forget, even if she goes to the city, and don't ever forget the wild beehive. But at the time when she was crying in front of it, and it doesn't seem to be active. It seems to be a very like an abandoned hive. Does it have anything to any connection with the wild bees at the ending of the film?
What's your name?
David.
David, you're such a careful audience. Thank you so much. Nobody asked this question before. Actually, there was quite a nice story behind that hive, connecting to a flashback of, as you saw, the mother took Aisha to the hive when she was a little girl, and there was a whole story about the mother herself, her own childhood, a story about the hive was shown to her by her own mother, and the fact that actually the story is the mother, when she was a little girl, had to go to the forest. Her dad wanted her to be a beekeeper. She wasn't so sure about that, but her dad said, go to the forest and find a wild beehive, and she looked for them, and she was shepherding goats, and one day she found it, and she had that real connection with the hive, real wild beehive, and then she was more connected and passionate about beekeeping, and that was the kind of spiritual and metaphysical legacy she left to her daughter. There was the flashback was a little longer, but I decided to cut it off in the edit, so that's why you don't see it. But of course, they are not the same wild beehives. The other beehive was in the forest. The one she finds in the end is, as you know, the queen bee flies to another tree and forms a new hive. Basically, it's not about the physical beehive wherever it is. It's about the spiritual meaning and the symbolic meaning of the beehive. When the queen bee creates a new beehive, it creates a new colony. It creates a new home, and that's a great symbol for Aisha, who comes, who's kind of a queen bee, acts like a queen bee, comes from away and goes back, and it tries to find a home, but she's not very peaceful there. She's not at ease, and at some point, she starts to create a new colony. It's kind of a spiritual message from the nature that she gets there, and that was also in one of the stories that the real beekeeper women told me, and I kind of connected them in an opposite order that she told me. She told me in a different order, but I put them in a different order in the sense of showing the dialectical process of birth, death, and rebirth in nature in a condensed time, which represents the journey of a human being on the planet. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Eylem. Any other questions from the audience? That lady over there.
Hi, my name is Joanna. In the film, at least 2 or 3 times in the nightmare of the main character, she sees a flock of goats in front of her. Is there any connection between her bad dreams, for example, the ghost and the beehiving? Because in my imagination, she got the bad experience from beings rather than the ghosts.
What did you think?
Well, that is quite unclear to me, because I expect she had bad experience as a child when she handled beehiving. That's why she hated. But in the dream, that is not the beings.
Well, as you remember, the opening sequence of the film is to do with Ayşe returning back to the town, climbing the mountain, and literally entering into a thick cloud of fog, and where her vision disappears. It's so foggy, and all of a sudden, from the fog, from that cloud, we see the heads of the shepherd dogs and then the heads of the goats coming towards her, and they stand still and look at her. So that's the very first image she comes across when she arrives at the village. The look, the gaze of the goats right at her, which is quite mesmerizing for her, which haunts her. And that was my own experience when I was scouting location in the region. I traveled to many places, and that single town where it's a biosphere reserve area on top of the mountain, when I entered, I experienced that scene, and I felt that it was kind of a passage to a new dimension, a passage to a new world, a world of Mother Nature, a world of wild bees and wild bears, a world which has mysteries and its own language to learn. So the goats, a lot of people had different really nice comments about that. One writer commented that the goats looked at us, looked at the audience as if they were court case or judges. You know, the goats were looking at that, looking at us with that expression of judging us. That's the gaze of animals towards us. That's the gaze of the nature. Of course, it will have been a bit more difficult to use bees, and I never thought of it, but I see the goats as a part of the nature, and they are all parts of nature. They are all one, actually. They don't have our own perception of, you know, differentiating us from each other, like our awareness that we are humans and we are superior to them. They are just nature, and the nature is looking back at us, just like the little bear at the end of the film. So it's kind of a dream scene. She keeps returning, reminding her of her very first moments of arriving at the village and meeting with the first souls of Mother Nature.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, good. If you don't have questions, I'll continue to ask. Maybe, Eylem, can you tell us a little bit about the theme of sisterhood? Because I noticed that, of course, the film is driven by the relationship between Ayşe and Mina. But also there's this scene where all the women in the village gather together for a music and dance gathering. So can you tell us a little bit about this aspect of the film?
Are you asking about the sisterhood or the music and dance? I'm not so clear.
Sisterhood, and also the relationship between women in the village, as shown in the gathering, the scene of the gathering in the village.
Mm-hmm. the scene of the gathering wasn't only about sisterhood. It was about a traditional music band, which were real people, as you saw, and they are also protected by UNESCO as a World Heritage because they do throat singing, Georgian throat singing, and they do it in the same tradition for centuries. I just wanted to show a glimpse from the village life in that scene, but in terms of sisterhood, there we go into character development a little bit. I also have a sister, and I have a sometimes turbulent relationship with my sister, so I projected that to my character a little bit. We see two sisters. One stayed in her hometown and continued a traditional life, and maybe didn't have too many choices. One left and lived in the West and had too many choices, but didn't know what to do with her choices. But there were too much expectancy from her. The whole family expected her to be very successful and to do stuff, and I like that conflict between the sisters because it can be very hurtful. So I use that aspect and how that was a way of Aisha trying to get her accepted and acknowledged. And the scene in the gathering is a scene that I like very much, of representing the village life.
Okay, I'm sure the audience, they would probably want to ask more questions, but I'm sorry, but we've run out of time because we've got another screening coming up. So thank you very much, Eylem, for joining us. And thank you, Burku. Ms. Burku still here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
For
Thank
coming.
you. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and thank you very much, audience, for joining us with the screening. We will wave goodbye to Eylem. Bye-bye. OK， 亦都多謝晒大家嚟呢個放映，多謝晒。